Venture deep into the Earth's subterranean labyrinth, and you'll uncover a world far removed from the sunlight and familiar creatures we know. Prepare to be both fascinated and horrified as we delve into the darkest corners of caves where nightmarish creatures lurk, their adaptations twisted and their appearances otherworldly. These are the cave dwellers that will haunt your dreams, creatures that have evolved to thrive in the perpetual darkness, their senses heightened and their forms sculpted by the unforgiving environment.
Cave. That sounds friendly, but this is not a good story. You would think that when you hear the words rescue arrived that you'd be able to heave a sigh of relief. But in the case of John Jones in 2009, sadly, that wasn't the case. John Jones and his family loved exploring caves together and decided to do so again on November 24th, 2009 as a way to connect before Thanksgiving. John went off to find the birth canal, a narrow passageway that explorers had to infamously shimmy through with their body. He entered what he thought was the canal but soon got stuck. He was with 9 other friends and family members. His brother Josh tried to pull him out, but instead John fell even further, pinning his arms. He was now trapped 400 feet into the cave, 100 feet below the Earth's surface. Rescuers tried everything. They tried everything, but their only hope was a pulley system which eventually failed. After 27 hours, John passed out due to the strain on his heart because he was at a really weird angle, and at just 26 years old with a 1-year-old daughter, John passed away. Number 9. Pokanoga Bay. In Pokanoga Bay, there is a cave that looks welcoming at first with a friendly passageway but soon leads divers 117 feet below, trapping many inexperienced divers. Over the years, it has led to many lives being lost to its labyrinth of passageways. One of the most disturbing discoveries was a man found 54 meters down in 2002 with a knife lodged in his chest. His diving mask was removed, so at first police thought it was a case for murder. The man known as MK had gone diving with his friends, so it was plausible that one of them was to blame. But further investigation revealed that MK had actually gotten lost, ran out of air, and began drowning. As he swam up, he found a pocket of air, but not enough to sustain him until rescue came. He knew he was going to drown, so instead of drowning, he took his own life. Oh man, already it's number 9 and it's just the worst. It gets worse. It doesn't get better. Number 8. The Sterkfontein Caves. This event is a reminder that if you are going to take risks, always follow the plan, otherwise it may cost you your life. Peter Verheusel decided to explore the Sterkfontein Caves in South Africa in 1984 with a few of his friends. Despite guidelines, Peter couldn't resist exploring caves off the beaten path. The first couple of times it was alright, but the third time his friends couldn't find him. Peter had gone so far down a passage off the planned path that he eventually got lost with not enough air to return. So if you do that and you don't pack enough air, then you're screwed. Fortunately, Peter found a small island with a cave which meant that he wouldn't drown, but given that he was short on air, he couldn't return, meaning he had to wait for rescue. With no food, Peter was trapped in the pitch black darkness. I wish I could say this story had a happy ending, but it took 6 weeks for rescue to find him. Beside his body was a note he left for his wife and mother in the sand: "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." If you're gonna do that, make sure you pack extra oxygen. Oh my god. Anyways, my dad's a scuba diver. This freaks me out, okay? Number 7. Dion Dreyer. In 1994, a man named Dion Dreyer was lost 270 meters in Bushman's Hole in South Africa, and for 10 years, no one was able to get to him. But Dave Shaw, an experienced diver, was determined to do just that, retrieve his body so that he could be put to rest by his family. Shaw had set a number of diving records and was the only one to find Dreyer's body 207 meters down, covered in silt. Unable to retrieve it the first time, he promised to return. It was Shaw's 333rd dive in his life when he went back, but at those depths, any intense struggle could lead to a diver passing out. If a diver starts to inhale too quickly, something called hypercapnia can happen, which is when too much carbon dioxide fills the bloodstream and it can disorient you don't know which way is up anymore. While Dave was trying to cover the body with a body bag, the skeleton began to float, something he didn't account for. before. Catching it became a vicious struggle, and being an experienced diver, he knew better than to keep trying. But as he began his ascent, to try again later, his light got snagged on the cave line. He was already disoriented from the earlier exertion and began to panic, and Dave eventually passed out and died next to Dreher. But later, their bodies floated to the surface, making it possible for divers to retrieve them both. So, in a way, he did make good on his word, but even as an experienced diver, things still went wrong. So, prepare yourselves. Always. Number 6. Floyd Collins and the Crystal Caves. The title makes it sound like it's some kind of mystical adventure, and for Floyd Collins it was, until very suddenly it wasn't. Floyd found the cave in 1917 and became so enthralled he wanted to explore every inch of it. Floyd spent close to a decade trekking through every narrow passageway, besting them all. That is, until one day he went an inch too far. Lantern in hand, he was trying to make it out before he lost light. While climbing his way up a passageway, Floyd bumped a 12-kilogram rock loose. In 127-hour style, the rock crushed his ankle and trapped him inside. Rescue teams spent 17 days trying to save him, and Collins became a celebrity, with people even setting up booths to sell food and drinks and souvenirs, all in preparation for his rescue. They tried everything and decided to resort to mining a new path, but sadly, that took too long. Even though they gave him water and food, after fighting so long and so hard, Floyd passed away in the cave due to hypothermia. Number 5. The Mosdale Cavern Disaster. The Mosdale Cavern Disaster. In 1967, John Ogden was with 5 adventurers prepared to take on a 2-mile deep, uncharted part of England's Mosdale Caverns. While they were already hours deep into their trek, it started raining. A lot. A full-on flood overwhelmed the entrance to the cave, sealing off any chance they had of escaping. Water poured in every direction, and soon a stampede of rushing water swept past them. As the water rose, Ogden was the only one able to reach a small crack of air in the rocks ahead. Ugh, so sad. There was only room for one, and the rest of his team perished in the waters below. I can only imagine the absolute terror he must have felt alone and trapped in a narrow crevice. Still, he survived as long as possible, but by the time they found him, he too had died. Number 4. The Plura Caves. So by now, right, we know that splunking in caves in general can be terrifying, but add scuba gear, it's a whole other level of craziness. A group of experienced divers decided to enter Norway's Plura Cave in February 2014, and they would be some of the last to do so. The pond that led to the cave had frozen, so they cut a hole in the ice before diving in. The plan was to swim to the other side, but one of the scuba divers named Jari had gotten halfway before he gotten stuck in a narrow passage. He panicked, and in order to prevent hypercapnia, his friend Patrick handed him a cylinder to limit the carbon dioxide in his system. To his horror, as he tried to switch, Jari helplessly swallowed water and died. Patrick had to stay calm, otherwise the same fate would meet him, and therefore had to abandon his friend's body and keep going. Another man named Kai was behind him with another man named Jari, who also ran into some trouble. Jari, upon seeing the body, panicked and sadly fell to the same fate despite Kai coming to his aid. As Kai was the last diver, the exit was now blocked and he had to trek back the way he came. He emerged 11 hours later, and it wasn't until 2 months later that the bodies could be retrieved secretly by the same men who left them, because they closed the Plura Cave. The Plura Cave is now closed to even the most experienced divers. No one is allowed. Alright guys, we are coming up to our top 3, and if you like this video and want to see more like it, you know what to do. Press that button. Tell us you like us. Subscribe for more. It makes us happy, and then we like making you happy, so. Number 3. The Cave Creek Disaster. In 1995, 17 students were visiting New Zealand's Cave Creek, and everything was supposed to be fine. They had a guide. The weather was fine. They weren't exploring narrow crevices underwater. The path was designed for tourists like them. But then, a couple of students noticed a flimsy looking platform. As teenagers are wanted to do, they made fun of it, assuming that it was stronger than it looked, so they jumped on it. But the builders had made a deadly mistake. They had used nails instead of bolts to secure it in place and had no engineering background. The platform gave way and the students plummeted 130 feet onto rocks. One survived by gripping a handrail all the way down, but out of the 17, only 4 survived. Number 2. Paninkin Plains Cave. Mixing in some happier endings in our top 10 list, we have the story of Andrew White and his team. In 1988, Andrew was with a team of 15 people excited to explore one of the deepest caves in the world. world. A rare cyclonic storm had other plans for the group when it caused the middle section of the entire cave to collapse. They were trapped underground and couldn't go back the way they came. They hung tightly next to a small ledge and the roof above them looked as though it was about to collapse. Andrew took on the courageous task of swimming through the water to find a way out. It took the team over 24 hours to be let out, and thankfully, they all survived! Yeah, like the first story we have where they all survived. Luckily, Andrew recorded the whole thing and ended up releasing an award-winning documentary called Nullarbor Dreaming. Despite surviving this experience though, Andrew passed away in a helicopter crash in 2012 in New South Wales. Last but not least, Nam Talu Cave Flood. Rule number 1 of risk-taking on vacation: if the locals warn against it, listen to them. This last story is truly heartbreaking and a solemn reminder to any who do not heed warnings. In October 2007, Helena Carroll, her fiance John Cullen, a Swiss family with 2 girls, plus another family with a young boy and 2 guides, decided to trek the Nam Talu Cave. The problem was, it was monsoon season, and locals warned them not to attempt it. Halfway into the cave, they heard a roar behind them, and you can guess what happened. A freak flood swept both families and the guides away, but John saved Helena by pulling her up on the ledge. Consumed by the idea that they might die there, John decided to brave the water to try and get help, leaving Helena all alone. She hung there for 8 hours until help finally came. When she exited the cave, she made the grim discovery that she was the only one who'd survived, and she lost the love of her life.
Starting off strong, we have Murphy's Cave, commonly referred to as Mark Twain Cave and the Lost Boys. Murphy's Cave, found in Hannibal, Missouri, was discovered between 1819 and 1820. The cave is 3 miles long with 4 separate entrances and 260 passages, along with a year-round temperature of 52 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 degrees Celsius, so pretty cold. 57 years ago, on May 9th of 1967, the group of 3 by the names of Joey, Billy, and Craig set out to explore the extensive cave system after having their interest sparked by Joey's apparent sighting of an alien spaceship over a nearby cliff, and after being warned multiple times not to enter the cave due to the extreme dangers they might face if they did. But of course the warning was unheeded and the boys set off on their expedition. When they did not return home in the evening, the first reported instance of chaos began to ensue, as we really have no way of knowing what other kind of chaos the boys experienced during their time underground. A search party was sent to explore the area, and unfortunately the trio was never found, but many eyewitnesses reported to have seen a mysterious figure over the very same cliff in which Joey claims to have seen the UFO. While the case was never closed, 3 theories for the boys' disappearance do exist. 1, that they were lost to the caves. 2, that they had run away, however this theory is the least accepted given the positive state of the boys' home lives, and 3, that they were abducted. Unfortunately, we really have no way of knowing, but I would recommend staying clear of this location and all of its dark twists and turns. Next we have Mammoth Cave, which has been a hotbed for disappearances over the years, boasting an alarming 10 known cases of persons who went missing, one of which was Orla Allen K. Barrick. The woman was last seen around 2 p.m. on April 12th of 1996 and went missing that same night and was never seen again. When police forced their way into her home, they found blood on the carpet and a burnt cigarette on the shelf. Barrick's hair was also later found in the Green River surrounding the cave, but no body was ever located. Next was Michael Leyland Vincent, who disappeared in March of 2011, an ex-convict who lived near the cave. In 2004, a 54-year-old man by the name of Roland Baldwin met a similar fate after going for an ATV ride near the caves, after which he never returned. When a search group went out to the area in an attempt to locate the man, all they found was the ATV abandoned, along with Baldwin's glasses, shoes, and an unfinished bottle of whiskey. Tony Ray Cheote, Josephine Petit, Walter Greg Flower, Lost John, and 3 Jane Does were also reported to have gone missing in and around the cave, and how many others might have met the same fate, we really have no way of knowing. Next we have Kenny Veach, who was a hiker, YouTuber, and Area 51 enthusiast up until his final known days in 2014. The 47-year-old, who was an experienced hiker, claimed to have found a cave near the assumed alien bunker Area 51. The cave, whose opening was shaped as a capital letter M, thus nicknamed simply the M Cave, would go on to garner extreme popularity and be the source of much speculation as well as a string of conspiracy theories. Veach first mentioned the cave in a comment under a YouTube video in 2014. He said that he had been been hiking out by Neal's Air Force Base next to Area 51 and found the hidden cave. And he also added that while he usually enters into every cave that he finds, he decided not to this time, as when he stepped towards the entrance, he said his whole body began to vibrate, and the closer he got, the more severe the vibrations came. Despite his first encounter with the mysterious cave, and after some encouragement from his followers, Veitch did eventually decide to revisit it, but he and many others were left disappointed as he was unable to locate the Big M on his second expedition. On November 10th of 2014, Veitch decided to try his luck again and headed out to try and find the cave once more, but unfortunately that was the last anyone ever heard from him, as he did never return home from his final voyage. Speculation as to what could have happened to Kenny took off and ranged from Veitch uncovering government secrets and alien forces all the way to being mauled by an animal or perhaps even faking his own death. However, one comment left on the missing YouTuber's page posted before his final expedition really stood out. The comment read, "Do not go back there. If you find the cave entrance, do not go in. You won't get out." Sand Cave, also known as Kentucky's underground enigma, is up next. The cave is no longer accessible due to safety concerns after a man by the name of Floyd Collins was trapped in its sandy maze for 18 days and was later found dead within its walls. Floyd, born July 20th of 1887, was an American cave explorer in the state of Kentucky. He lived to be just 37 years old after an accident occurred during an exploration in which Collins had hopes to discover a new entrance to the nearby Mammoth Cave, and of which he did not return. Floyd was a highly experienced explorer, so when he didn't make it back from his expedition, people naturally began to worry, and so a search team was sent out after him, of which only 2 were able to successfully reach the man. It appeared Floyd had become trapped by a rock that had fallen from the unstable sand and limestone walls of the cave, and many men spent many days attempting to come up with a solution for his rescue, during which Floyd's brother, Homer Collins, would slink down into the place his brother had been captured by the mountain's underground tunnels and provide him with food and water, all the while trying to remove the rubble that held him in his place. Unfortunately, though, he was unsuccessful. On the 18th day, however, rescuers were able to finally reach Floyd, but the efforts proved to be futile as Collins had sadly passed due to exposure from the elements, and not only that, but the sand cave had sealed Floyd's body within his walls. So it wasn't until several months later that his body was able to be extracted and he was buried near his family's home. However, it seems he was eventually moved, as his body now rests in the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery as a tribute to his work in cave exploration. Cathedral Caverns, yet another culprit for a life-threatening disappearance on March 22nd of 2000, when a young man by the name of Justin Lovett disappeared inside the popular tourist attraction located in Langdale, England. The entrance to the cave is an impressive 126 feet wide and 25 feet high and makes way to a 0.75-mile-long walking path. Inside the cave you will find a frozen waterfall, and as you venture further, a giant forest of massive stalagmites protruding from the floors of the cavern. So while it is really no surprise that Lovett wanted to explore the cave, what was surprising was the fact that he didn't return home that night. Fearing the worst, his mother put together a search party to canvass the pitch-black cave for any traces of her son Justin, who anything in the darkness. Thankfully, after just 8 hours of having disappeared into the cave's vastness, Lovett was returned to his mother by a group of rescuers. He said the experience was a warning not to attempt something like this ever again without 3 sources of light and the accompaniment of another person. Next on the list we have a vortex spring, an underwater cave system in the state of Florida, also the largest diving facility in the state. The site boasts multiple man-made caves as well as a cavern with depths of 115 feet, 35 meters. Snorkeling in the area is open to the public, but to dive into the tunnel-like cave systems requires both dive and cave certifications, both of which Ben McDaniels had previously obtained before taking his last known dive on August 18th of 2010. McDaniels, age 30, born in Memphis, Tennessee, was working on becoming a dive instructor in the hopes of opening up his own dive business. On the day of his disappearance, he had successfully completed a morning dive at a depth of 58 feet, 17.6 meters, after which he refilled his tanks in a nearby dive shop. Around 7:30, he began to attempt his second dive of the day, of which he unfortunately never returned. Left behind was McDaniels' truck, wallet, driver's license, dive logs, and a map he had made of the Springs cave systems. The last known person he had spoken to was his mother in a phone call before his descent. For months after the disappearance, dive experts searched the area except for an extremely dangerous area in the back of the cave system, and no body was ever recovered. The only trace of McDaniels found within the massive cave was 2 air tanks placed together near the underwater entrance, which seemed odd since generally tanks would be placed apart from one another as life-saving pit stops should a diver ever become low on oxygen when making their trip back up towards the surface. While Ben McDaniels is believed to have drowned within the cave, he is still classified as a missing person today. Okay, this next one is Barome Moor Cave. The cave was discovered in 1961 in Perry County in southeastern Missouri after a sinkhole revealed a natural underground tunnel system. When the cave was found, scientists discovered that it was home to several unique and uncommon species, including amphipods, cave salamanders, and grotto salamanders. Not only that, but footprints discovered in the still soft mud were determined to have been made from an extinct species of jaguar. On June 9th of 2022, a report was filed after a 13-year-old dog by the name of Abby went missing from a Missouri home located near the cave. It seems as though the animal had just vanished, as no trace of its presence could be detected anywhere in the area except for a few of her footprints near one of the cave's entrances. On August 6th of 2022, a recreational cave explorer by the name of Rick Haley visited the site in an attempt to map the cave, but he ended up with way more than he bargained for when he heard the sound of Abby's barks coming up through the walls of the cave. A rescue mission began that involved moving the dog through a 500-foot, 15-meter vertical climb through the tight walls of the cave. Now this one is a feel-good story as the rescue was successful and Abby was returned home after having been missing for just over 2 months within the tight confines of the cave. How she survived, we have no clue, but we're really glad that she's okay. The Chinhoy Caves are up next. The beautiful caves located in A1, north central Zimbabwe, which are made up of limestone and dolomite and contain a beautiful pool that goes 200 meters, 656 feet deep, were used as a hiding place during wartime in Africa. Not only that, but the caves are famously guarded by many spirits who are said to punish those who enter and do not comply with their specific set of rules for respecting both them and the cave. Some of these rules include explorers of the cave having to ask permission for entry, not being able to show panic or fear, nor being able to laugh while inside its cold walls, as well as not partaking in any mischief. The punishment for these offenses? One would disappear within the cave, never to be seen again. It is also said that it's impossible to throw stones into the pool of the cave, which some claim to be never ending, as the spirits living there would stop the stone from ever hitting the surface of the water, thus no ripples exist within. Locals claim that there have been many disappearances over the years due to misbehavior on the grounds, but no official reports have ever been filed. Next up we have the Wind Cave, discovered in 1881 by brothers Jess and Tom Bingham after they had heard loud whistling noises coming from a small hole in the ground, the cave's only original natural opening, which was later expanded upon to allow for exploration of the site. A vast underground cave system located in southwestern South Dakota, whose many chambers are lined with honeycomb-like calcite structures. The area became a popular destination for hikers, one of whom was named Rachel Cox. On October 22nd of 1989, Cox, age 18, along with a group of others, was partaking in a mock search and rescue mission inside the cave when Cox thought she had seen one of her instructors slip through a small passageway inside. She and her partner followed, but after realizing they had gone the wrong way, her partner slipped back through the hole from which he came. Cox waited, then decided to do the same, but suddenly her lamp went out. She stood in darkness, waiting for her partner to return, but after a few minutes, she decided she could just as easily feel her way back to the crevice and crawl out herself. Only she crawled through the wrong space and wound up even more lost than she had been just moments before. Over the course of her 36-hour disappearance, she became cold and desperate, cursing herself for being stupid enough to crawl into a crevice when her lamp was so low on fuel, and Cox even admitted that at one point she believed the cave had begun speaking to her. When she was finally rescued, she saw a bright light as a man with a big beard reached out his hand and asked, "Rachel, are you ready to leave now?" Rachel, exhausted, replied, "Are you God?" and then waited another 2 hours as the team of rescuers pulled her shaking, dehydrated, and weak from the cave back into the outside world. And finally, we have Ellison's Cave, the 12th deepest cave in the United States. Along with many small crevices, the cave is home to an incredible 586-foot, 178.6 meter drop, nicknamed the Fantastic Pit. However, not so fantastic for some, as there have been multiple known cases of people who have rappelled down into its depths, only to have it be the last thing they ever did. This unfortunately was the tragic case for two University of Florida students by the name of Michael Peary and Grant Lockenbach. On February 12th of 2011, the pair had set out with a group of friends to explore the landmark, but apparently broke off from the pack at some point during the expedition. Dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, Grant was the first to attempt a 120-foot descent through an area in the cave containing a waterfall. But it seems somewhere along the way, his backpack became caught up in the rope he had been using to rappel down the cavern, and he became stuck. Michael, who was the more experienced climber of the two and unaware of the fatal outcome, decided to go down after Grant in order to provide some assistance. It is said that the group was able to locate the two and even spoke to them for about 45 minutes until the voices of the two young men began to die out and eventually disappeared. The deceased were recovered and removed from the cave later that night, and while the cause of death was never officially declared, many believe that the two died of hypothermia due to extreme cold temperatures within the cave. The passing of Michael and Grant, along with many others within the parameters of Ellison's Cave, serve as a warning of the extreme dangers of cave exploration. In fact, a few years later, a group of YouTubers went back to explore the cave where the teens were lost and ended up finding another group of people stuck in the rappel. They saved them, but imagine if they weren't there.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the Hunting Cave painting. This painting comes to us from an astonishing 44,000 years ago and was found on the wall of a cave on an Indonesian island. Researchers were able to date this painting that far back due to the fact that the cave it was found in is still a living cave, which means that rock formations have been growing over the painting, and by being able to date those, they know it is at least 43,900 years old, but it could potentially be even older. The painting features what looks like a hunting scene with 4 wild pigs, some small buffalo, and a group of really small hunters with spears. The strange thing about these hunters, other than their size, is the fact that they're all human and animal hybrids. They all have elongated faces like an animal snout, and a lot of them have tails. There is even one tiny human thing that has a beak. We don't really know why they depicted the hunters this way or why the animals are so much larger than them. There also were no other usual signs of human life found in the cave, such as bones or hunting tools, so this cave may have acted as some sort of special or sacred spot for them, and while it definitely holds a lot of secrets, we may never get the chance to know most of them. In our number 9 spot today, we have lizard hands. In 2002, in a cave discovered in the western deserts of Egypt, researchers found tons of paintings on the walls thought to be dated back at least 8,000 years, if not even longer. The paintings feature animals, humans, and sometimes headless creatures, which led to the cave being nicknamed the Cave of the Beasts. But there are also hundreds of handprints outlined, which are both very cool and very eerie. The most unusual of the handprints, however, are the 13 that are extremely tiny. This would be endearing and very cute, but what was once thought of as tiny little baby hands are actually not even human at all. An anthropologist realized this in 2006 when she discovered that they were much too small and the fingers were much too long. It is thought that these handprints may belong to lizards or perhaps baby crocodiles, but we still aren't really sure. It is definitely interesting and kind of fascinating to see all of these handprints on the walls of the cave, but it definitely carries a mystery that we may never know the answers to. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Magura Cave. This is a cave that is actually one of the largest in Bulgaria, and it is located in the northwest area of the country. This cave is filled with prehistoric paintings that date back somewhere between 8,000 and 4,000 years ago. Through the research into this cave, around 700 drawings have been found on the walls, and they depict a wide variety of scenes. These paintings were created using bat excrement. I mean, you're in a cave, you gotta make do with the resources you have. It's not like they could just walk over to Michael's and grab a brand new paint set. The paintings mostly depict different hunting scenes, as well as scenes of people dancing and celebrating. Honestly, I just wish for one day that I could understand the mind of an early human and understand what these paintings were meant to symbolize. Maybe it was meant to show something, and maybe they just liked art. who knows for sure. In our number 7 spot today we have the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is a painting that comes all the way from at least 7,000 years ago. The painting is the main part of a mural that is located in Utah's Horseshoe Canyon. I know, it's not exactly a cave, but it's close and it's a cool ancient painting. The entire mural is huge as it is 300 feet long and features around 80 figures, and it was likely painted by ancient nomads. The techniques they used to create this image was by filling their mouths with red ochre tinted paint and then spraying it out onto the sandstone. This is all super cool to learn about, but here's the kind of creepy thing. No one knows why these paintings were created or what they represent. It is possible that maybe they just like to paint, but it is kind of crazy to think about what this figure could have meant to them. Was it part of a legend? Was it something they saw in real life? Was it a prediction of things to come? This is just one of those mysteries that unfortunately is buried with the people of the past, and we are just left to speculate exactly what this could be about. In our number 6 spot today we have the Brazil Caves. This is an interesting cave painting because of the fact that it is widely debated when exactly it was created. The Serra de Capivara National Park is located in eastern Brazil, and it is the home to a bunch of different rock shelters that are decorated with incredible and elaborate cave paintings. This area includes scenes of rituals, hunting, trees, and animals, and some scientists believe that the oldest of the paintings dates back to at least 25,000 years ago. There are others who debate this because that would go against what we currently believe is the date of human settlement in the Americas, but hey, we weren't there, so who knows? In our number 5 spot today we have the vandalized cave painting. This painting is the oldest known painting in India, and it was found on the walls and ceiling of the Sittanavassal cave. It was originally believed that this painting was first created in the 1st century BCE. The paintings depict things like human figures, fish, elephants, birds, and different floral patterns. It is said that another artist ended up drawing over the original, which is an incredible shame and truly just rude. These paintings have been severely vandalized, and a lot of the areas are in quite bad shape. There's something about things that are this old that makes me feel like they should just not be messed with at all. Not only because it's rude, but also because you just never know what kind of things they may hold. In our number 4 spot today we have the droughts. Ancient drawings and writings were found covering the walls of the Dayu cave, which is located in central China, and a lot of them detail different droughts and such that were experienced during the time of their writing. According to these drawings, people would come to the cave for either water or to pray for rain in times of drought. The writings reveal some of the horrors that the people of the time experienced while going through these periods of drought, including severe starvation, social instability, and conflict between government and citizens. While these cave writings show us a different time in history, researchers say that these stalagmites are formed by dripping water and they form rings, sort of like how trees do, and these rings can give us insights into different things. Based on the patterns of these rings, scientists were able to corroborate the things that the cave writings were saying, but they were also able to make a grim prediction for the future, which is unfortunately that this region may again see one of these catastrophic droughts, this time in the late 2030s. In our number 3 spot today we have daydreaming. The paintings at the Lascaux caves are perhaps some of the most famous ancient cave paintings of all time. They date back to some 17,000 years ago, and a lot of the art seen on the walls of the cave is art that depicts animals. About 900 of them, with 605 being pretty identifiable. There are cattle, bison, some wild cats, bears, birds, but there's one weird thing. There's no reindeer, and there were definitely reindeer in the area at the time, and there's evidence that reindeer meat was used for food, so why didn't they draw any? Well, our best theory as to why is that perhaps these drawings and paintings are depicting animals that the humans at the time were daydreaming of. The animals that were too fast or too strong, or that they didn't have effective weapons for. The drawings showing what life could be like if only these humans had more. Does that sound familiar to any of us? Because I think it definitely should. In our number 2 spot today we have astronomy masters. This is a point that doesn't discuss just one cave painting in particular, but it's something that has been seen throughout many that have been discovered, and even in some of the oldest ever found. What I'm talking about is the early humans and their complex understanding of astronomy. A common theme among ancient cave paintings is the depiction of animals, but what was previously thought of as just a drawing is now being realized that instead of just animal symbols, they may actually be used to represent star constellations in the night sky, and the paintings of them may be used to represent dates or mark events such as comet strikes. I mean,
For a second, imagine being an early human having no concept of science and looking at the night sky with no light pollution. It totally makes sense why they would try and keep track of these things, not to mention how terrifying would a comet or meteor be when you have no idea what they are. Researchers have been able to find thousands of sites and symbols that span through thousands of years that seem to be using the same sophisticated level of astronomy. It is likely that this understanding is exactly why human migration and navigation of the open seas was possible. Their brilliance truly was crucial to how we evolved as humans. In our number 1 spot today we have Lascaux. Lascaux is a complex of caves and different rock shelters that are located in northwestern Somalia. These caves and rock shelters contain some of the earliest known art in the Horn of Africa, and really just on the continent in general, which is quite the feat considering the rich history of humans in Africa. I mean, it's where we evolved into humans after all. These prehistoric cave paintings show cows in ceremonial robes accompanied by humans. They show domesticated dogs and even a giraffe, which I personally love. These paintings are actually very well preserved, which is fantastic, and they retain clear outlines and vibrant colors, which really gives us a clearer look into the lives of the people who created them.
And we're starting off this list with Kenny Veach. Kenny Veach was an experienced hiker and explorer who went missing in 2014 while searching for a peculiar cave in the Nevada desert. Kenny shared in a YouTube comment that he had encountered a mysterious M-shaped cave near the Nellis Air Force Base around Area 51, which had apparently caused his body to vibrate. Encouraged by other commenters, he filmed his exploration of the cave and uploaded it to his YouTube channel, Snakebite McGee, titling it M Cave Hike. Unfortunately though, on his 3rd attempt to reach the cave, a few months later, he vanished without a trace. His cell phone was discovered near the entrance of an old mine shaft, yet his whereabouts are still unknown. It's possible he got lost or had an accident, but the cave's proximity to Area 51 and Kenny's claims of odd vibrations led to a lot of online rumors and theories. Some speculated he might have stumbled upon significant information related to extraterrestrials or government secrets, and that his pursuit was intentionally disrupted. Despite extensive searches though, there's still no solid evidence or leads as to where he is. Next we have Ben McDaniel. Ben McDaniel disappeared in August of 2010 while exploring Vortex Spring in Florida. He dove down to explore an underwater cave roughly 58 feet below the surface. He resurfaced. It was totally fine. He refilled his tanks in preparation for a second dive later in the evening. But this time, he never returned. His truck was left behind at a dive shop. Inside it were his wallet, a cell phone, and a map of the cave. There were also 2 oxygen tanks found near the entrance of the cave. And the 2 divers who discovered them found it odd that there was just air in the tanks rather than having a mix of gas, which is typically the case when deep diving. The cave is known for being tricky to navigate with tight spaces and poor visibility, and despite a thorough search by experienced divers, he was never found. Some think he might have run into problems, maybe he got stuck or had issues with his gear, but no one knows for sure. And some even suggest he purposely disappeared or maybe faked his own vanishing, which is quite the reach, but there's still no concrete answers till this day. Next on the list is Michael Leland Vincent. Vincent went missing in Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky on May 5th, 2011. At the time, he was on parole and he had just set fire to his house, which he shared with his mother and aunt. Some speculated that he had attempted to burn down his house in order to fake his own death so that he could escape the consequences of his charges. Some say he may have taken his own life, but no body has ever been discovered. He lived very close to Mammoth Cave though, which is huge. In fact, it's the largest known cave system in the world. So if he did go missing in that cave, it's likely he'll never be found. Next we have Peter Verhulsel. Peter was exploring the Sterkfontein caves in South Africa with some friends in 1984. He had veered off the line strung through the cave, which was used to help them find their way back out. Scuba divers were sent in to try and locate him, but days, then weeks went by before his body was finally discovered, at which point it was too late. Peter was unable to find his way back to his friends, but had managed to find a small underground beach where he pulled himself out of the water. It was pitch black in there, and his oxygen tank was just about depleted, so he was completely trapped. In this multi-week long search, rescue teams would have been within 36 meters of him, but Peter didn't hear them, and the rescuers believed that he had drowned. When Peter was finally found 6 weeks after having gone missing, it was determined that he had died of starvation. Floyd Collins. Floyd Collins met his unfortunate fate in Crystal Cave in Kentucky, a cave which he had actually discovered and had been mapping out and exploring for 8 whole years. On January 30th, 1925, while exploring the cave, Collins became trapped in a narrow passage about 150 feet away from the entrance. He had been working on creating an entrance to a grotto he had discovered down there when his gas lamp started to dim. Now, he was in a rush to make his way back out of the cave, and he accidentally knocked over his lamp, igniting it completely, or opposite of igniting it, he put it out completely, and his foot landed on an unstable part of the wall. Rocks started to shift, and one of them fell from the ceiling, pinning his leg. A rescue effort was, of course, launched, but Floyd was deep in the cave, and the difficult conditions made a rescue kind of tough to execute. Despite the attempts of rescuers, Collins remained trapped for over 2 weeks. Tragically, on February 13th, Collins finally died of exposure, hunger, possibly hypothermia. This was most likely the day he died, but his body wasn't actually retrieved until the 16th. Next up is the Nam Talu Cave incident. In 2007, Helena Carroll and her fiance John Cullen were exploring Nam Talu Cave in Thailand along with 7 other tourists. Things took a turn for the worse though, when a flash flood broke out. This giant wave gushed into the cave and swept away everyone except for Helena and John, who just started climbing in order to escape this rising water. They reached a ledge and debated what they were going to do next. John ultimately decided he was going to attempt to swim to safety and send back help. He did not survive, and Carol was found and rescued hours later. She was the only survivor. Number 4, we have what I like to call a close call. This was a story posted to Reddit by a now deleted user, but the story goes that they were exploring a cave with their family. As they were making their way out, they discovered a narrow opening in the rock about knee high. By lying on their stomachs and squeezing through the tight space, they entered a small crawl space within the rock. The ceiling of this space was adorned with beautiful quartz crystals. Moving in one by one, the group stared up at this beautiful sight before them. The space was so tight though that they could feel the ceiling against their backs and the floor against their stomachs with each breath. They continued deeper though until the path led to an area covered in sediment formations like stalagmites and stalactites. Everyone thought this was pretty cool, but they began to feel water trickling onto their backs. They realized that it was raining outside, and the crawl space had a downward slope that would quickly fill with rainwater. The only way to escape was the way back they'd come in, and what started as a small trickle of water pretty quickly grew into streams, and the water began to accumulate. They rushed to exit, crawling out one by one, but the water was flooding in faster than they could escape, and the user who was furthest from the exit was trying very hard not to panic. They had the worst time here, crawling on their stomach with sharp crystals hanging from the ceiling again, and they struggled to keep up. The water level rose rapidly, splashing against them as they crawled, and just in time though, they managed to crawl out as the water had reached their lips at this point, and everyone managed to get out safely. Ugh, I feel uncomfortable just reading that. Number 3, we have the Catacombs video. Now, while the Paris Catacombs isn't technically a cave, it is cavernous and dark and incredibly easy to get lost in. This is one of the most infamous pieces of found footage on the internet, as we still don't know who this person was. If you somehow have not heard about this case before, it's a POV video of a person exploring the catacombs. The camera with the footage was found later on by a group of explorers. Most of the video is pretty mundane until you start to notice that the person behind the camera seems to be getting increasingly more distressed. He starts to pick up his pace, pointing the camera around in a frantic manner as if realizing he's lost and is starting to panic. Then he's in a full-on run. The video ends with the cameraman finally dropping the camera and just running deeper into the shadowy depths of the maze of catacombs as the camera continues to film. before finally running out of battery. John Edward Jones. In 2009, John Edward Jones went missing in Nutty Putty Cave, Utah. John was exploring the cave with his brother when he got stuck upside down in an uncharted narrow passage, which he had mistaken for a section called the Birth Canal Passageway. Despite efforts to free him, John remained trapped in the tight space. Rescuers worked tirelessly to try and retrieve him, but in the end, they were unable to save his life. The challenging conditions of the cave made it extremely difficult. The passage was only about 10 inches wide in some places, and it was positioned at a steep angle. The rescue operation involved pulleys, ropes, and other equipment to try and free John. They even brought in specialized teams from around the country to help, but unfortunately, after nearly 28 hours of being trapped in this upside down compressed position, John suffered cardiac arrest. Because of the dangerous conditions and the risk to the rescuers, it was decided the best course of action was to just close off the entrance to the cave, sealing it with concrete to prevent further access. And finally, we have the rescue. I thought I'd finish off the video with an uplifting story for once. Let's leave things on a good note. Uploaded in 2016 to the YouTube channel Exploring with Josh, the group of friends were exploring Ape Cave in Mount St. Helens, Oregon, when they made a pretty shocking discovery. At the start of the trek, the cave is very spacious, but pretty soon the group were on their hands and knees as they had moved further and further into the cave. It was becoming increasingly more low and narrow, and one of the guys suggested they just turn back, saying, "I don't think this is worth it, man. I don't think we're meant to crawl this far." But they continued on, and it's lucky that they did, because they came across a young girl who had got lost in the cave somehow. She didn't have anything on her, no light, nothing, but she'd managed to crawl in that far. The boys were able to bring her back to safety, where she was reunited with her parents. Luckily, she hadn't been in there very long. If they hadn't decided to explore the cave that day, who knows if she ever would have been found.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Texas blind salamander. 3 red flags, right in the name alone. Texas, blind, and salamander. They say everything is bigger in Texas. Please don't let that be true for this creepy crawly, please. Unless you live around the Edwards Plateau in Texas, you don't have to worry about these guys while you're spelunking. The Texas blind salamander can only be found in the deep cave systems, and you'll know when you see it. It kind of looks like one of Khaleesi's dragons from Game of Thrones. It's got red gills on the back of their pale heads, and like many others on this list, it is adapted completely to the dark. These salamanders lost their vision, but it's totally fine. It's chill. They don't need eyes. They move their head around slowly, and they sense changes in water pressure. That's just the start too. How horrible. Let's do it. Number 9. Blind cavefish. So a lot of these creatures, if not all of them, they're blind. Spoiler alert, that's the fun beauty of this list. All these creatures live in pure darkness their entire lives, so they need to find other ways to hunt. Some of them sense water pressure changes, but when it comes to the Mexican tetra, aka the blind cavefish, they don't even need eyes at all. Not even for show. Awesome. This is horrifying. They were discovered originally in 1936 in Sierra de El Abra, Mexico. If you thought your high school had clicks, you're not ready for the blind cavefish. Since they don't have eyes at all, cavefish rely purely on sonar clicks in order to stay in their respective schools. Yeah, not a bad click pun there, right? You guys are like, wait, why was he? Oh, I get it. Some of these fish will eventually see light, and that's not bizarre, but when that happens, they slowly develop eyes and vision. How insane is that? That's only at their near surface rivers. Imagine just growing eyes and then seeing light. What a Wednesday that ought to be. Number 8. The olm. Okay, I'll give you one more before we get into the gross spiders. The olm, our number 8 today is, dare I say it, he's a little cute. He's kind of cute. I want to rub his little head. I don't know how laws work here at all. I just see a fish and I'm like, I hope it's not National Geographic, if that helps. I mean, the lack of eyes here is a little jarring, sure, but the olm compared to the rest of this list, it's a breath of fresh air. The olm was the first ever troglobite to be discovered, meaning the first ever creature that lives purely in a dark cave. And given the fact that it's pale, eyeless, and it looks like a dragon, Croatia folk back in the 18th century, they thought that they were looking at a literal dragon for a hot minute. Yeah, more than fair, more than fair. I have unlimited resources online right now, and even so, 30% of me thinks that's a dragon, for sure. It can probably breathe fire, right? If you see this little guy, don't try and slay it. leave it alone. Water pollution has made the olm a vulnerable species. We just did a list on extinct animals we're trying to bring back to life. Let's also preserve the blind dragons while we're at it, okay? Cheers. Hit that thumbs up for blind amphibians. Number 7, the cave robber spider. I warned you, I did warn you. You wanted it, here it is. The worst thing ever. Welcome to Most Amazing. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here, rather. The cave robber spider, or troglodyte, can't tell which is worse there, oh my gosh, is a quick little cave predator that has a fun addition over your standard spider. Yeah, the cave robber has claws on the end of its legs. Yeah, you thought it couldn't get any worse, did you? Well, wrong. Here we go. The cave robber spider likes to hang from its web from, atop these pitch black caves. Then when it feels something a little too close for comfort passing down below, it snaps. It snaps its prey with claws, like a praying mantis, only in dark caves, and also a spider. I'm gonna be sick. This is horrible. If you live in Southwest Oregon, I am so sorry. Please do not explore any caves. Just stay home. Stay home, play Nintendo. That's it. Number 6, kawaii cave spider. Hungry for more cave spiders, are we? No sweat, let's do it. This one does not have eyes. Sans eyes, no eyes. Somehow worse than the last one, right? First discovered in 1971 in, you guessed it, Kauai Island, Hawaii. One of our fans, Alan Bennington Castro, this one's for you living in Hawaii. Yeah, how's the sun? How's the tan? This is what you get for living in paradise. It's referred to as the blind wolf spider, and if your palms are also sweating right now, they're one of the most rare creatures in the world, okay? So only 30 have ever been documented. More than fair. What's that? 31? Oh. One's missing, that's odd. I think researchers are finding more like out in public. They're just not down to take photos or get close. That's what I believe in, really. Forget that, I would quit in that cave if I saw one of these. Since it's lived in darkness its entire life, it doesn't have eyes. There's no need for them. That's so scary, that's horrible to look at. The spider is considered endangered. That's all thanks to humans splunking and bringing toxic chemicals like nicotine around. Plus we also attract non-native predators every time we leave food in these cave expeditions. So good on us. These spiders are great hunters, but they're not that great. We gotta stop, leave the caves alone. Number 5, the rat snake. Not to be confused with the rattlesnake, that's another horror entirely. The rat snake is found over North and Central America. And it pains me to say this, but they're kind of common. Yeah, there's one type of rat snake though, and this has made its home in the Mexican jungles. And locals refer to this cave as the Cave of Hanging Snakes. Why would you even go in? If someone's, oh, what's it called? No problem, not going in. This cave is chock full of bats, so these snakes are talking to one another. They made a little snake heist, a little snake plan, and they decided to hang out in the walls and the ceiling and wait for all these bats to leave the cave or come back in. Yeah, how horrible is that? They dangle by their tails and grab a bat mid-flight. Yeah, I didn't like snakes before this list. Then I saw this. Number 4, Priaticus andrewsi. This species of cyprinid fish. Okay, of course it lives in complete darkness, not new. But the wow factor here with this cave fish is that they have evolved to live in complete darkness for over 2 million years. They've been without eyes for a while, unlike the other fish that I mentioned earlier. They can only be found in Somalia, and it's the first ever animal in history that does not adjust its biological clock with the sun. How cool is that? Its days are around 47 hours long. A fish that can naturally process time and numbers without the sun. That's the coolest thing on our list today. I think that's definitely the coolest. Number 3, cave crayfish. And we're back to creepy crawlies. I gave you a break there with the fish again, but sadly, there's more happening on the ceilings of these dark caves. Ugh. I'm Canadian, so I've seen crayfish in lakes and all that. Already, not a fan. Now we got cave crayfish? Come on, man. The thing with these troglodytes is that they have a small amount of food their entire lives. They live in areas without the sun. That's a huge lack of nutrition. That's why they're all so pale. That's why they all look like me in February. Very pale. In turn, this crayfish is quite slow. We love that. Why rush, Take it slow. Chill out, man. In fact, some of these cave crayfish have lived to be 175. Again, they like to take it real slow. Number 2, cave harvestman. Okay, yeah, don't let the looks fool you. This creepy cave dweller is not a spider. It's an apilion. It's a completely different arachnid. It's actually cousins to daddy longlegs. Why don't we call this one daddy cave legs? I don't know. Like commit or don't, but daddy thing's weird with bugs. They're one of the most common when it comes to these dark cave creatures. They're so common that some residents in the States have actually tried and went to court. Yeah, hear this out. The bone cave harvestman only lives in Central Texas, and back in 2014, a nonprofit group filed a petition to have it delisted. So imagine putting on a dress shirt and going to court. Like, oh, did you have jury duty? No, I actually went to go fight the existence of a spider. Sorry, a non-spider. Number 1, Cyanocolipus. Yeah, we had to save the one that sounds like a Decepticon for last. That's only fair. The Cyanocolipus, or Cyanocolipus if you're fancy, is one of the coolest creatures I've ever seen. It looks like a shrimp with the head of a much larger ant. Take that back. Instead of cool, scary. It's a very scary creature. It's a cave-dwelling millipede. Here you go, folks. Nightmares for number 1. There you go. Out of the 6 known species, 5 of them are often found hiding in limestone caves in Southeast Asia, and they come in many shapes and sizes. But since they live in complete darkness, their legs are even longer than your average millipede, and it's pale, so you won't see it coming, really. Its antenna is also quite long too, so if you feel a little itch on the back of your neck, could be this guy right here. The only good news here is that their eyesight isn't all that dandy, right? But after everything I just said, does that really make a difference, do you think? No, it doesn't.
At number 10, we have J. Frazina in the Austrian caves. If the show Planet Earth has taught me anything, it's that caves are dark and beautiful ecosystems that are teeming with life. And in this video, there's a shot of some of that life that seems to be something I've never seen before. In this video, J. Frazina is on a little hiking trip in Austria. She's with a whole group, so it seems like she should be pretty safe. Unless you're the one person on the tour who they forget and then you get stuck in the cave and then you're like on the side of a mountain for the rest of your life getting attacked by bears. That could happen. Well, this mountain tour leads to a cave and then they start to check it out. Caves are really one of the marvels of the world. Just then she's surprised by some sort of creature.
There's someone climbing up the wall. It's an iceman. It's a ghost. Jesus, what is that? Do you see that? Oh my God.
What the hell is that thing? It looks like some sort of lizard man working its way up the wall with ease. It's really far away, so it's super hard to tell what this thing is or how big it is, but it's some sort of beast man living in the cave, climbing up the walls. That's what it looks like. I'm gonna say just let this thing be and don't bother checking it out. At number 9, we have the Risa Tunnels creature. So during World War II, the Germans wanted to build some sort of tunnels in the Owl Mountains, all the way over in Poland. Why did they want to do this? Well, we have no idea. Hitler was into all sorts of weird stuff. He had troops out there looking for magical artifacts. I guess if he won the war, he wanted to be a part-time warlock. Well, some people not so long ago wanted to go check out these tunnels to see what was going on in them, and they were in for a bit of a shock. This group of dudes was walking through when they saw this. Here's another man just running around in caves, I guess. Is there a whole world of things underneath us that we don't know about? That thing did look kinda like a humanoid. It looks like it was running around on 2 legs, but obviously it was moving very fast because by the time they turned the corner to look at it, it was gone. At number 8, we have Satan's Cave. Well, if you're a kid growing up in Minneapolis, I can imagine you get bored really quick, so finding a cave to walk around in probably sounds better than smoking weed in the park with all your friends and complaining about your mom. Now, this group of kids went into some caves underneath Minneapolis in search of what's called Satan's Cave. They end up walking through what kind of looks like a sewer with a bunch of graffiti on the walls and some strange demonic faces that have been carved all over the place. Now, this is super strange, but they want to get to Satan's Cave, so they continue past the demonic Art Deco. Eventually they get to a tunnel that heads straight down so far you can't see the bottom of it. This could be what they were looking for, but naturally they were like, screw this, and decide to turn back and exit the cave. Probably a smart move. At number 7, we have Train Tunnel Surprise. So what's a tunnel and what's a cave? It's kind of like a tomato-tomato situation. They're both holes in the ground where everything is dark and spooky. So I'm probably gonna throw a few tunnels on this list, and I don't care what you guys say because who cares? It's a tunnel or a cave, it doesn't matter. Well, a bunch of teens thought it would be a good idea to try and walk through a train tunnel in the middle of the night. These tunnels are right next to Odell Lake in Oregon, and usually there's large transport trains moving through them. Well, guess what happened while they were crossing through? A train showed up. Yeah, who would have thought of that? A train coming along train tracks? Well, these kids had to jump off the tracks and press themselves against the walls while standing in some gross swamp water so the train didn't run them over. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Alright guys, at number 6 we have Lost. Okay, getting lost in a cave is one thing. You could probably last for at least a few days until people found you. But getting lost in a cave underwater while you're free diving, you have minutes before your air runs out. Well, Kodiak Moraski was doing some sport fishing while free diving. He was chasing down a little lobster and then got a little too far into a cave. This got him all turned around and he couldn't find his way out. He started to panic, but luckily he was able to find which way he came in. I guess the scary encounter in this cave was almost drowning to death.
You're fine, just breathe out the rig, Tina.
I can't get some.
Put the regulator in your mouth.
Wow, I don't know what's going on.
At number 5 we have Nick in the Caves. Okay, this one has got a lot going on. This starts with a Russian YouTuber named Nick. He's got a channel where he explores creepy caves and places like that. On one episode, he decides to explore some old Russian caves with some friends. While exploring, he gets into a section that is so tight he has to take his backpack off and leave it behind. And then he gets separated from his friends. He explores a bit without his stuff and then comes to some strange sections. There's a part with a jug, it's set up to catch water, but it's like, who is that for? This is in a cave in the middle of nowhere. Eventually he's freaked out and he heads back the way he came. He gets back to his backpack and he sees that it's been opened and his stuff is scattered everywhere. Who or what did this? While he's collecting his things, you can see a pair of eyes in the reflection of the camera. He doesn't see this until he reviews the footage, but you can see these dark eyes peering at him through the darkness. It's very creepy. My hair is standing up just talking about it. At number 4, we have big ol' spider. Alright, this one is simple. Mikhail Krosberg was in a cave in Laos and then he found a giant spider. He said it was as big as a pizza. That's super gross. This thing is so big it looks like it could eat a pug. Honestly, to be number 4 on the list, that's all you need. You don't need to be something supernatural or like some demon from another dimension. It just needs to be a super gross spider because I think they're disgusting and I don't want anything to do with them. That's how you get number 4 on this list. At number 3, we have the Cave of Screaming Terror. Okay, right off the bat, you call a place the Cave of Screaming Terror, and I'm not going to visit. And I don't think anyone in their right mind would think this is a fun place to check out. While you're at it, why don't you go check out the House of the Soul Suckers, or the Forest of Getting Kicked in the Nuts? Well, this one dude went for a swim in the cave because most of the cave is submerged, so if you're gonna go inside, you have to swim. And he doesn't even bring a boat to go in. He's just straight up swimming in it. That's asking for some cave creature to pull you down and rip your insides out. The dude swimming was Donnell Buckley, and while he was going for his nice little float through the cave, he started to hear this. I don't know if that's a bird or whatever that could be, but whatever it is, Donnell didn't want to figure out where it was coming from, and he beelined it out of there. Good idea. At number 2, we have MJ in the cave. The ghost of Michael Jackson was attacking people in a cave and it was all caught on camera. Nah, I'm just lying to you guys, because that's fun for me. We're not talking about the famous pop star Michael Jackson. We're talking about the YouTuber Mark Johnson, of course. He was exploring the Cave of the Winds in Colorado when several paranormal encounters happened. First, we have this weird noise that kinda sounds like a ghost farting or dropping a massive turd.
Probably kick on the spirit box here in a minute and that other room.
Do you think you still have to crap in the afterlife? Do you believe in ghost poops? Please, let us know your thoughts in the comments. It's not long after this that we see another paranormal encounter. An orb! I don't know much about ghosts because I don't spend my time watching ghost hunters. I've got better things to do, like literally anything else. But those orbs are supposed to be ghosts walking around doing like ghost stuff, like slamming doors and watching you sleep. Okay, you guys, we're on to number 1 now. And the number 1 spot on our list goes to an account from a park-wearing dog. Oh, he's so cute. You guys have probably seen this dog all over the internet. His name is Tret, he's a pit bull, and he can climb trees and do all sorts of cool stunts. Well, one day his owner was taking this good old boy out for a walk when he came across an old well. A well is basically a cave, it's just like sticking in a different direction. You guys know, wells are still in the theme of caves, especially if they're old and abandoned. Tret's owner hears something weird coming out of the well, so he decides to take a cool little video, and then we see this happen.
В колодце что-то шипит. Может, ужик.
What the hell is that? It definitely doesn't look like something that should be hanging out in a forest. It looks like something that came out of the gates of hell. But let me know what you guys think of this thing in the comments, and let me know if you thought this one was deserving of the number 1 spot. Alright everyone, that is our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it so much. As always guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also, I want you guys to start blasting the comment section and let me know what you guys thought of the video, what you would change, what you would add to the list, and if you guys want a part 2. And if you guys need more Most Amazing Top 10 content, you gotta check us out on Instagram and Facebook because there is so much more content over there for you guys to check out. And it's a great way to get to know myself and the other hosts a little bit better. Until next time, I have been Che Arena, and I am not gonna be in any caves. If you wanna go on a cave trip, we'll just like set up a lawn chair outside and I'll keep watch while you all get eaten by demons. Bye.
Discover America's most haunted cities. Haunted American cities that you might be living in. Check out the video now to find out more. You'll be sure to thank us later when you find out you live in the most haunted city in America.